Engineering, very welcome. You're very important to this class. Every team in this class requires at least one non-GSB graduate. So it's important. Part of this activity is team development. How many are in the MBA program? Sloan's? All right. So an ideal team is composed of a Sloan graduate, some MBAs, and someone from another school. We'd like to have content. We'd like to have some analysis. We'd really love this team. We have approximately each year about 30 teams in this class. I'd like to get a sense how many plan to start a new venture over the next several years. How many not? This is a wonderful class. The purpose of this class is to teach you the process, basically, of creating a new venture. Each year we approximately have about 30 teams in this class. This year we'll have 24 teams. We'll admit 24 teams. The purpose of this class is not to incubate, but it's to teach you the process of going about creating a venture. Looking at initially, you'll be forming your teams, getting an idea. The first quarter will be focusing on the viability of the venture. Is this a viable venture? And teaching you how to look through and test to see whether you have a viable venture. The second quarter, really, we come forward and we look at, let's build a real plan, develop the plan, including sales, marketing, finance, and the final thing is a presentation to a group of experienced investors in your area. So that's basically the outline of the course. The teaching methods in this class, you'll have a team, and each team will be assigned an instructor and a mentor. The mentor will be, for example, in the medical area, we'll have someone who really knows the medical device area, and we'll try to choose an instructor that basically has some knowledge in that area. So you both have an instructor and a mentor. We're really blessed to have so many really quality mentors here that help us in this class. From a teaching side, this is team taught. My personal background, I helped found this class about 10 years ago. I'm a practitioner and also a teacher. I've been here for 30 years. I've actually started, led as CEO, and co-founded 7 successful ventures. I'm currently right now on the board of 2 ventures, hopefully selling one over the next week. So that's what I'll be leaving here promptly at 1 o'clock. I also am very active and involved in a nonprofit that's involved in starting new ventures around the world. We've helped create 600,000 of those. So that's really my passion. I'm very fortunate to have other really talented instructors. And Evan, could you give a little your background?
Sure. I'm Evan Porteous, and I'm also been here over 30 years. The saying goes that smart people learn from their mistakes, and wise people learn from others' mistakes. And we're trying to go beyond that and to have you not only learn from others' mistakes, but others' successes. And as an academic, it's sort of my goal to try to distill down to the key things that we can convey to you, not only in terms of mistakes that others have made, but also in terms of key success factors. So, for example, if you have something that is a must-have rather than a nice-to-have, that's really nice. It's not required, but you can see a lot of times the ones that are really great successes have that kind of thing. So, being an academic, I haven't started all the companies that Dennis has, so I'll be partnering with somebody from practice in each of my sections to make sure that I give you a full balance.
2 other instructors that are not here. I think you might, at the MBAs, might know Jim Ellis, who's just a wonderful instructor. Jim will be monitoring 4 teams. Jim has started a very major company. He has extensive experience in the entrepreneurial area. He's a wonderful person. And Jim has been co-teaching in this class for the last 4 or 5 years. And then we have a partner from Kleiner Perkins who will be joining us this year, who's now Russ Siegelman. And Russ will also be mentor and teaching, having 4 sections. So those would be the core instructors in the class. As far as the teaching method in the class, so you'll be meeting with us as instructors. And the first whole section will really be focusing on the first winter quarter. Is this venture viable? We don't want to build a plan about a non-viable venture. So we'll be pushing you to really understand the viability of the venture. And the second quarter really is putting together the real plan and the presentation. So the teaching methods, at first we have team meetings. You'll be meeting with instructors. I'll basically be monitoring or mentoring 8 teams. Evan will be mentoring another 8 with co-instructors, Jim 4 and Russ 4. We then, in a very structured way, which we've developed over the last 10 years really, a very structured process where you'll go through stages, and in each stage we'll ask you to present to what we call a seminar. That's to your fellow colleagues. And we'll group together these seminars so there'll be 4 teams. For example, if there's a retail team, we'll try to bring all the retail teams together. If it's more an internet-related one, we'll bring the internet-related ones. We'll have these groups, and you'll present to your fellow colleagues your plan, your progress, where you are, and we'll have these very structured seminars. We also have outside speakers that come that really focus on what we think are really critical issues in both stages. So those are the basic teaching methods. It's a lot of team dynamics, there's a lot of presentation, and outside speakers. Yes?
I know it's early, but I just want to clarify whether MBA wants to actually take this course.
All right, so our strong preference is not. And I'll give you the rationale for that. In this class, we're going to ask you basically to integrate some of your strategy material, some of your organization material, some of your leadership skills, marketing, and we really prefer that you take it the second year.
Okay.
Any other? Evan, would you like to elaborate on that?
No, we can. There's a lot of material in the course description that's handed out here, and also in the calendar. And both of those things are online from the CES website. If for some reason you weren't able to pick one up, we ran off 90 copies, but it might have run out. So there's a lot of those details are in there, but obviously we're happy to kind of explain what they are, requirements for team composition, things like having a diverse team that Dennis has already mentioned is important, because there's certain things you learn about bringing people with kind of a different worldview as to work on your team, and having a successful team is also a key success factor, being able to work together with diverse people.
Very, very important in this class is the support we have. We have support from CES, and there's 2 people that just are critical to this class, Yuri Wu and Pauline Wiles. They keep us managed as faculty. So they're really important contributors and important parts of the class.
You might want to introduce Nancy and Linda also. Also key members.
As far as the structure of the class, I'd like to give you a sense of that. All right. So this quarter, what we'd like you to look at is basically get a viable idea and a team together. And you'll be applying to this class, and I'll go over the schedule later on. The first quarter we have next week is really, is this venture viable? And what we have you do during this period of time is actually do some really solid research. This isn't reading a Gardner report. This is actually going out, if it's business to business, actually talking to prospective customers. So we really want you to get the experience of going out and testing your idea. So it'll be really some solid market research to test what's your appropriate product service offering, what are the pricing structure on that, what are the economics and possible business model behind that? Is this viable from that side? And then also developing your team dynamics. And we are fortunate we have Dave Bradford actually helps us in thinking through your team dynamics. Does your team really, is it structured right? Are the right players? Are you coordinating and working as a whole team? The end of the winter quarter, one of your seminars will present the viability. And at that time, approximately 1/4 to 1/3 of the teams decide either the venture's not viable or the team isn't together. And it's usually a combination of both of those. So not all teams continue. If you'd like to continue with another team, we sometimes accommodate that so you get the full experience. So the first quarter is really, is this venture viable? We'll have very structured seminars you bring you through there. We'll have also outside speakers, one talking about how do you prototype early in the project, how do you test the prototype, others talking about how do you really quickly screen your viability of your venture, how do you morph that. Most of the projects here will morph into different projects than you started before, so we expect that. The second quarter is really, we focus on, do you have a viable sales and marketing plan? How are you going to operate? Are there technology challenges that have to be taken care of? What is the financing structure? How do you do the stage-wise financing? Who owns what of the company? We run a mini case, which is fairly engrossing, engaging really in, how are you going to divide up equity? A lot of this on communication and selling your venture. You'll meet with the MCP. We'll actually have outside people work with you further in putting together a really professional presentation. And then the final work product is a written plan and a presentation to a really top-right group of investors that know your subject area. Out of this class, we usually have 4 to 5 actually start real new ventures. This has been a very exciting class to teach. We have a wide spectrum of projects. I can give you a sense of that we have everything from, I'll give you the extremums. All right, so one extremum was a group came here several years ago from the physics department, had a mini cyclotron. And we said, what is the market for that? And they worked very effectively with an MBA team, and they've actually started a new venture in that in the medical area. The other extremum was really a team that wanted to compete with Victoria's Secrets. So that really gives you a spectrum of it. We will describe what we're looking for in the projects. What we're looking for is projects where you can do some real meaningful research. We have had them in education, we've had them in a variety of subject areas. But we want to make sure you can do some real research. For example, if the majority of the work requires that you travel to Uganda, that's probably not viable in this class. So we're looking for projects where you can do research, that you can actually, we can conceive that going forward you can build a real plan. We've had wonderful projects in here, and many of these have gone on to form substantial companies. It's been extremely satisfying to do that. Over the years, what has happened in this class, which is satisfying to me, is that usually this class, at the end, they decide, I'd rather take a position with McKinsey. But 5 years later, they come back and say, and I just got a call the other day, gee, I really have this exciting idea. I remember what I learned in this class, and what do you think of this, Dennis? And that's really exciting to see them happen. And we have this repeatedly. As I mentioned earlier, about 70% of our MBA students actually start new ventures at some time during their career. So this is a wonderful time to really gain that experience in a non-threatening environment. I mean, as far as the workload in this class, this is really driven as much by you. What happens is the students really get engaged. And there's engagement, and the result is that you probably work as hard in this class as any class you do. Not that we're pushing you, you're just so engaged. There's some challenges here, for example, in getting interviews with someone from Intel, or and you'll learn the process of how to do some cold calling to get some of these interviews. There's the issue of getting consumer groups together. And so a lot of this is just challenging from a work task. It's also challenging from interpersonal dynamics. So-and-so is not delivering as everyone else is committed in the group. So those are some of the challenges. For the non-MBAs, we encourage you to take this class for a pass-fail basis. So that really is helpful, and you'll find we find the students are really engaged. Many of them come back and say this is the most worthwhile experience we've had here. I'll give you an example of that. Last year, the first day of class, I had one of the students who had started a company called True Greece. He flew from Greece on his own money just to tell the class what this course was about. He'd started this travel company called True Greece. So there's a lot of energy that's created here. We're committed as faculty. We love teaching this class. I love it personally. I'd like to give you a sense further on some process-related activities. So in timing, one of the real challenges we find this first quarter is really to get this mixing of non-MBAs, Sloan students, MBAs, and what we're trying to do this year, as we did last year, but we're extending this further, we're running a series of seminars and mixers. So next week, we'll have one seminar here on looking at the broad area of what are the opportunities in the internet space, both the application area and and also the technology area. We have outstanding people participate. The head of Google's mergers and acquisition activity, and Russ Siegelman, along with faculty members, and we'll run a seminar for about a half an hour. The other purpose here, and probably the major purpose, is give you an opportunity to meet with other students that have an interest in this area. So we'll run that mixer. We have a similar seminar we're running on clean energy kind of areas, which seems to be a growing interest in some of the student body, and that is being held, actually, we're making an outreach to go over the engineering school. And we're having one of the venture capitalists who specializes in that area, plus the original founder of one of the electric cars will be there, plus one of the faculty who's basically looking over all the energy opportunities here in the faculty. So that's another opportunity. Maybe, Evan, you could talk on the retail?
Sure. And let me say, in general, the way we're organizing these Sandbox seminars is first half an hour is kind of introduction, overview, big picture. Second half an hour is to get ideas from you in the audience as sort of things that you're thinking about pursuing. And then you'll be able to get some feedback directly on the project, and then some general feedback that gets suggested, implied by the discussion. And by having several people give your ideas, it helps you kind of understand who's thinking about what. And then we'll have another half hour or 45 minutes after that for a mixer. So you'll have an idea of kind of who's doing what. You can connect up. It'll kind of facilitate that whole mixer aspect of it. So so in the case of retail, it's basically retail plus consumer service type thing. So like we had last year a daycare center project. So things like that would be pursued there, and then Dennis can talk about the healthcare one, which will be actually over at the Clark Center.
The healthcare one we're actually having over at the medical center. So we're trying to integrate as best we can, and for the MBAs and Sloan students, I encourage you to go to these other schools if you have an interest in that at those times. And the seminars, I think we've actually negotiated to have a little wine and beer. Beverage. Thank you, Linda.
Dennis, those are all at 5:30, right?
At 5:30, right.
And by the way, November 28th is Wednesday, not a Thursday.
All right, all right.
So they're doing 3, is that what you said? 4.
So that gives you time, and we'll go through the process too, and maybe you could talk more about the process of signing up for this class.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, since you brought up the subject of the Thursday actually being Wednesday, November 28th, one of the things you definitely want to do is make yourself very comfortable with the S356 website. We will have constant updates there, and one of the pages there that you'll find is forming teams. When you go there, you will find a link. If you're a non-GSD student and would like to have your information of what areas, healthcare, whatever you would like to be in touch with other people with. You want to fill out one of these forms, and I'll put in the information for you. GSB students are able to access this on their own because it's on the T drive. There is also another form that you have to fill out. You have to actually send an email to the S356 distribution list in order to be automatically added to that. So just remember, the two components are very important. You want to get your information on the list, but you also want to receive the updates. So it's kind of a two-step process there. So I really do recommend please go to Forming Teams on the S356 website, which you're going to be seeing shortly.
And let me add a little bit. One thing, so this idea, there's this database that you'll be getting emails periodically from now until the application time from UTI, and it basically tries to facilitate your connecting with other people that have similar interests so that you can form teams and so on. And then partly the Sandbox Seminars is, of course, to do the same thing. The other thing we're doing new this year is at the beginning of this database will be a section where there'll be people, typically leadership of the GSB clubs, that volunteered their time to help facilitate formation of teams rather than just with themselves, but kind of with the process themselves. And two people who've already put their names down: Jeff Landau, and on the medical side, and Brad Bowery. Where are you? He's not even here. He's so confident with this. And so I invite any of the rest of you who are in a position of being a leadership of a club or willing to help facilitate the formation of teams rather than just with yourself, but with others, but to helping people kind of connect. So, for instance, Jeff, I think, is maybe organizing some mixers and some seminars himself. I don't know if you want to mention that as sort of an example.
Yeah, I'll be working with SSG, BioX, the GSP Healthcare Club, and sort of anyone who's interested to try and get more of a networking arena, just because the science is a little more difficult than just sort of like a Web 2.0 strategy. So I've got everyone from the med school to the sciences to engineering, law school, GSB to.
So be sure to look at the first part of the database for people that will help facilitate it, particularly if you're having kind of trouble getting traction on that.
I'd also suggest, as you look at the website, we have there's a series of videos. There's one video on what the same presentation, last BBL. There's a video which we did last year, which gives you, in a way, how to look for ideas. And I'd encourage you, if you have an interest, it gives you a sense of what do we see as some fundamental ways to work in an interesting and viable space for your entrepreneurship. So there's a video on that, and there's last year's seminars which we had in these subject areas. So if you want to just look at those, the videos on those activities, it might be helpful. It's right on the website, and I'd encourage you, if you have an interest, to do that. What are we looking for in projects? Well, first we want to make sure there's a chance for viability. We will allow in nonprofit projects in here, but that we don't want the other projects to have the same characteristics.
Purposely nonprofit.
We like, if you're in a larger market area that's undergoing change, that's more interesting. There's a better chance that as you morph and move in that space, you can come up with a viable concept. So we like larger market. We like where there's a lot of change going on, whether it be political change, economic change, technology change. That really creates opportunities. So we're looking for we love larger projects. It takes as much work to look at a small market as a large market. So if you have an idea that's a large market opportunity, we love that. But we also will look at a smaller one from the learning side. So just from an interest side.
Let me just say a little bit about the metaphor of the Sandbox Seminars. We're calling them the Sandbox Seminars, and sort of what does that mean? The basic idea is that in this course, your project will be located in a particular sandbox of kind of ideas, technologies, sort of concepts, and so on. And the course will send you through an exploration, which some will call the random search, through your sandbox to find out whether there really is a viable idea in that particular space. And so the idea of the Sandbox Seminars is to get you started in the right sandbox, where there's a good chance that there is something that's viable. The process, it's really hard to change sandboxes once you're in the course itself. So that's the metaphor.
I want to ask a couple more just on team formation.
Yes.
I'm just curious, how many in here are not MBAs? Awesome, perfect. You guys are a hot commodity, so now's the time to use your leverage. Those of you who are MBAs, or if any of you are forming a team, this is your first test as an entrepreneur to really recruit your team. So we try to present forms by which you guys can do that. And trust me, in 10 years, we've tried 7 ways to Sunday to try to figure out how to make this work. And I think we have a relatively good system. However, the onus is still on you to go find those team members. You can be creative. You can go to the different schools, do some grassroots efforts, because you do have to get a cross-functional team. So I take great pleasure in the fact I don't have to spoon feed the students. That your first test as an entrepreneur is to really go and find the right teammates. So I encourage you to take that responsibility and do so. Yeah.
I have a quick question. If the idea is like a basic consumer service that maybe wouldn't necessarily require the expertise of a bio major engineer, is it a hard and fast rule that one of the members has
But you might find someone in the social sciences who has a lot of experience in consumer market research. Right. So you don't have to get someone necessarily from the engineering school, but it might be someone in the social sciences can be really helpful. Like last year, we had a PhD student come out of social sciences who was incredibly helpful in a social networking issue.
Even your Sloan's count as non-MBAs too.
So yeah, let me mention a little bit of kind of the rules of kind of what's diverse enough for the team. So one of the things is that joint degree MBA candidates are wildcards. They can count as either GSB or non-GSB. So each team needs to have at least one non-GSB. There's an additional thing. Sloan's, with an important exception, also are a wild card, but the exception is that Sloan's are so valuable, we really want to avoid all teams that are all Sloan's. The experience that Sloan's have just brings special talents and interests and all of these things. So the rule is that for a team that has 3 or more Sloans, there must be at least 2 non-Sloans. So it could be MBAs, it could be somebody across the street, whatever. Those are our diversity rules.
And in terms of the sandboxes, these are just certain idea spaces. We'll have, for example, projects that don't fit in any of this. Like last year, we had a wonderful project on an airplane, building and starting a business on their new airplane. We'll have projects that are just not fit in those spaces. And we have a fair number of projects in the educational area. But we were just trying to engender team dynamics here and giving a sense of where we think there's some opportunity spaces that are interesting.
You have a question over here.
Yes.
What are the rules for non-Stanford participants?
There's not admitted. What we will allow as adjunct members, but are not counted as team members, if someone, for example, brings a lot of experience in the medical device area, and they can be an adjunct member, but the team size, where we're looking at real team size, is basically they have to be in a graduate school here, an MBA or another graduate program here. We will allow in as an adjunct member, but that's not counted as a team. That's really to help the team.
So to follow up on that, from people who have ideas already in the very beginning stages,
Yeah.
Already, and one of the people involved in that idea is not a Stanford, I'm sure that's come up.
That's come up, and so they become an adjunct member of the team, but you have to get a team size of 4 or 5 of actually students here at Stanford.
One more while I have
Right.
the podium, is if for people who aren't that comfortable with the idea of after 2 quarters continuing on with a group of 4 or 5 founders, how have people dealt with that going into this?
I mean, if after the first quarter or after the second quarter?
After the second quarter.
That usually the social dynamics have worked out. some of the students decide that they really have better opportunities elsewhere. Some of them form a small team and decide to go forward. We will talk to some specific issues of who owns basically the intellectual property development of the classes of the team, and then we have a discussion on how to provide equity.
I would add that usually the teams that do go forward to start their venture, out of the 4 to 6 students that are originally there, 1 or 2 go ahead.
Right.
So they basically form a whole new team after that. But that whole practice part of working together as a team and making it all work together is a very important part of the course.
Yes.
Could you just give us an idea of maybe from the last year, how many teams went on to, or any memorable companies that have formed from us?
I'll turn that over to Evan. We have a mix of teams. Sometimes one instructor has more memorable teams than the other.
Yeah. There are a number. We have one from 2 years ago, Mr. You may have even heard about it. It's a barber shop in the city, and they've got funding. They've got it's basically a upscale barbershop kind of, new dimension, nightclub or whatever you want to call it. And they're going ahead. There's another one from that year where it's a good illustration of this whole thing about what are sort of things that explain a good possible venture. There's a trend it has to do with China. In China, not only China actually, but for graduate schools, there's the test of English as a foreign language. There's always been a written one, but they were adding an oral component, and so you had to actually be able to speak English as well as write it. And at the same time, the internet had increased to the point of the ability to be able to do things perhaps. So there's a big need for people living in China to learn how to speak Chinese. And then they did some marketing and found out that the Chinese would rather speak the native English language speakers that weren't trained in teaching English, so say from the U.S. or Australia or wherever, rather than people who were trained as teachers. And so they set up the system whereby they would get people to volunteer here, work at night at home and on their computers, and train people in China as a starting place to learn oral English. So, it's sort of a combination of the technology and the trends. Anyway, there are a bunch of others. So,
give you some from more of a data side. There's exactly the one that Evan was talking about, this using voice over IP in China. There are 200 million Chinese that need to learn English as a spoken language. We can't send 200 million people to train them. So they're using the internet basically as a way with voice over IP. We've had some companies that have actually started as public companies that are in the internet bubble. It was the e-insurance group. We've had last year a very good Sloan project that they decided at the end, I thought it was wonderful, they decided they had better opportunities than the one they discovered in class, but they looked at the whole issue of credit for foreign students, and they did a super job of researching that. We've had others in the medicine area, like if you go around to doctors today in their office, they have a handheld device. Well, that came out of this class to basically compare medicines, with the formulary. We've had others that have looked at, for example, a company started here for tubal ligation in women that was reversible. So we've had on the science base. We've had other projects in the travel area. Each year we have really fun travel projects. So each one of us really, as faculty members, we like to travel, so we fly for those projects. And we've had really fun projects in the retail space. So we've had a whole spectrum of them. Some of them have become public companies. A lot of them have been quite successful over a longer period of time. It's been really fun from that side. Yes?
It's a related question. It's in 2 parts. What kind of gauging do you use for venture projects specifically? Do they have to be a certain size potential, and
No.
do they have to be?
Well, we're more interested in the process. So if, for example, the major research is very difficult to do, it might be the major research might be in a foreign country to really understand that market. Probably not a good project for this class. So we're more interested, can you really do the fundamental business, marketing. Can we really understand the economics? Because you'll be learning not only with yourself, but the other colleagues. So it's really from a learning side. So size is, I mean, it's probably more interesting to us as faculty if it's a large market, but from a learning side, it might be of equal learning. And so we're really driven from the teaching and learning side rather than the viability. If we look at the funding of these, the vast majority of these have been basically angel investors. For example, this project out of Greece was basically funded by wealthy Greeks during the Olympics that wanted to see people tour Greece. We do have each year maybe one or two that fit the criteria for venture funding. We will actually have a seminar which we go over bootstrapping. How do you bootstrap a venture? Because of a lot of the projects here are really not situated for venture funding, but are greatly situated for clever ways of bootstrapping. For example, if I mentioned the cyclotron one, they got funded by the National Institute of Health by $8 million, basically. So we look at novel ways of funding. So and we'll try to connect people that are interested at the end in that subject area. So this isn't the vast majority are not venture-oriented, but there's a request for funding in some way.
Let me just add one little thing. It has to do with real estate projects. If a real estate project venture is really a project, which many times they are, where it's specific to a particular location and kind of things working out, then a lot of the processes of this course don't really pay off. If it's something more general, kind of an idea that would be applied in many, many places, then it does pay off. For instance, there was one last year that's actually they're going ahead and getting financing now on shared financing of homes, and the subprime crisis hadn't occurred yet, so it's actually redesigned now to basically what this is a fund with money that will help the homeowner either pay for, buy, or refinance, and take equity as a payback. And so it's a way in which investors can get equity in sharing in the single-family homes. So something more where there's kind of a process, then it does pay off. And you had a second part, I think.
Yeah, I think you answered it. It was whether you have a preference for IT-based or product versus services. I think you seem that you're okay with either.
We're okay with either part. Yes.
Are we to form groups before we apply and get admitted, or?
Yes.
So we apply as a team?
You apply as a team.
Okay.
So you apply as a team with an idea and the team. What we will do is we will look at the idea and the team. The faculty meets and will review that. And then occasionally we will ask actually to interview you to maybe redirect the idea. We say, well, we've seen this project before. We know it doesn't work, but you're in an interesting space. Maybe you might want to consider a redirect at that time. And so we will look through the applications.
And before that, like in addition to these mixers and in addition to people, are there going to be like resumes online that we can pull through and say, this person has experience in?
That's part of that whole spreadsheet. So as long as you sign up on, if you're an MBA student or a SLUM student, you sign up on the T drive under S356, evaluating entrepreneurial opportunities. Or if you go to the website and under forming teams, you'll find the interest spreadsheet. Just go ahead and fill that out and put your name on the distribution list, and you'll receive twice a week updates from them.
What happens if a member of the team wants to leave after a quarter while the rest of the team wants to go on?
Well, we're asking for the team to really be committed for 2 quarters. So as you think about this, there's a commitment behind it. It might turn out that the project isn't viable, but we don't like just one team member leaving. This is part of the process of being an entrepreneur, is you bind together the team and you try to go forward.
But we do kind of consider the situations that arise. Sometimes something will arise where you have a 4-person team and one person drops off, and we still say, well, we think it's worth continuing. Yeah. But it's not something we really hope to have.
Yes.
Thank you. Is there space on the website where we can actually post our ideas and maybe try and obtain people joining our team?
That's actually the spreadsheet. The spreadsheet will have your name, your email, phone number, if you're non-GSP or where your department is. It has the areas of interest, healthcare, internet, etc.
Detail on your ideas.
Yes.
And then you can get detail on your ideas.
Comment section.
That's what I would, thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Have you had teams in the past that have done an in-depth liability analysis before starting the class? And if so, how has that changed their experience during that winter?
We've had things that thought they did an in-depth.
There have been some who have actually, where there's already been money invested, and the team discovers that it's not such a viable idea, and it's quite awkward.
And we've had some that, last year we had a challenging team that way. That there had been a fair amount of money invested in this, and end of the viability analysis really wasn't there.
I was just going to ask how many teams have competed in business plan competitions in the past, or whether it's
If you'd like to, but that's not the purpose of this class. The purpose of this class is to teach you the process of how to create a new venture. Some of the teams get really excited and compete, and some of them win. But we said that wonderful, but that's not the purpose. Yes.
Does an entry strategy for an existing company in another country into the U.S. qualify for this?
An entry strategy for an existing company.
Yeah.
We like the experience of the startup, the initial startup. So what resources would you be bringing? We probably...
I think short answer is no.
So how will you go through and select the different teams? Let's say you've got 40 teams that apply. What's going to be your cutoff criteria?
So our criteria is we look at let's say they're in a healthcare area and they have no one from the medical profession in it. That's kind of a challenge. And then we look at, from our experience base, what's the opportunity for this being a really good learning experience for that team? Do they have a balanced team? Have they thought through the potential viability? Have they identified possibly where the research they would like to do in the class? So it's more from a learning side. And
And in particular, it's not a question of whether this will end up being a successful business. It's really a question of, can the learning process yield a lot of gain by this team? So are they really ready to address it, and is there a lot of potential? So something might be a great idea, but some of the processes in the course kind of wouldn't apply or whatever, then it isn't as great a match.
Thank you.
yes.
You mentioned that it's a requirement that there should be students from other business schools. Do you also accept undergraduates? And if you do, what are the requirements?
We need to be graduate students in the class. We've had it from time to time. There was one case which we had an adjunct undergraduate who was finishing his degree and became an adjunct and was an expert in a certain area, which was very unusual for an undergraduate.
Co-term is okay, but...
Co-term, yeah. Yes.
At what point should you file intellectual property?
All right. So the issue of intellectual property always comes up in this class. What we expect in the class is that the students will regard information as confidential to the class. That as far as intellectual property, there might be a case where, for example, they're getting some intellectual property from Stanford, and there might be some patents filed during the process. But the intellectual content is owned by the team, and we've had no issue over the last 10 years of sharing that information outside if the team really restricts that. If it's highly confidential, it's probably not for this class, but the real reality is most of the intellectual property here, that's only part of the idea. It's really the execution is really the challenge.
So if we file something as a result of idea we generate as a team, does Stanford own that 15%?
I don't think so.
Unless it's Stanford,
unless it's technology that comes from one of the graduate schools, say, for example, is something out of the lab with one of the other schools.
Yeah.
But if it's just a product of
The product of the class,
we own it.
you own it, yep. Yes.
Do all the ideas have to be new concepts, or can we apply this to a search fund model or something like that?
The search fund is really not appropriate for this class. Yes.
So you mentioned there's a minimum number of non-MBA students in the class, or in the team. So is there a minimum number of MBA students?
Minimum 2.
Two GSB students. So you could have two Sloans and 3 or 4 non-GSB students.
Yes.
It seems like it's not in our best interest to present an idea that's been explored before and didn't work in your class. Is there any way for us to see kind of a list of what's been tried in the past? You gave a few minutes.
Part of it is it's sort of a kind of a protection of the ideas from the people in the past, and we get them to kind of sign something at the end of the year, but it looks like they're signing away their firstborn child, and so they don't sign it. The best way to do it is to come up to CES and talk to kind of.
I'd say the big non-stutters, nail salons. Don't do nail salons.
And specifically nailsalon.com.
Exactly.
So we can solicit a little feedback from you guys.
Yeah, from us and
fine. Send us an email and we can give you some feedback.
Linda and the others in the CES are very knowledgeable about some of the projects that have gone on in the past and could be really helpful in that way. In fact, almost all of the successful projects in this course, the people involved in it are connected with Linda. So Linda is very, very well connected.
I take lunch appointments. Just kidding.
Yes.
Have you guys ever allowed a 3-member team, especially in a case where you have some adjunct members who might be identified?
Since the number of teams is limited in the class, we insist on a 4-member team to start with.
Short answer is no.
Most important, enjoy the ride. It's a fun class, and enjoy it. Any other questions? Yes, one more.
How many teams make the final cut?
This year we have capability for 24 teams. Encourage you to come to the seminars. Encourage you to mix. Thank you.